Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Smart and Snark podcast, where real software engineers and real software managers discuss real software. On this podcast today, I have my extra smart, incredibly well-dressed, most favoritist coworker in the world, Mr. Matt Jaffee. Mr. Matt Jaffee is a world-renowned computer scientist and astrophysicist. His role here is to try to educate us all on the value of technology and ultimately why we should submit to its authority. I am myopic middle manager, Jason Allison, whose role is to look good in front of the camera, upper management, and claim to understand technology and the role it plays in making me look good. Today is season 0, episode 1-1. So you think you can Agile? Mr. Matt Jaffee, are you prepared for today?
You failed to introduce the other member of the podcast today. We got a guest, and his name is Teddy.
No,
So
that can't be real.
If you hear some scratching or some woofs in the background, that's what's going on. But Teddy is probably has about equal expertise in Agile to Jason, so he'll be able to add a little bit to the conversation.
So I wanna make sure I understand this. So you have a semi-large, brown, furry, four-legged pet, and you named him Teddy.
Yes.
Can we just all agree that is the most unoriginal name of a brown furry animal in the entire world?
There was literally no other option.
You couldn't ask your Chatter GPTs, and they couldn't give you a better option than
just
Teddy?
said Teddy over and over again. Yeah.
Well, right, clearly, that's all of the interesting value you're going to bring to the conversation today. So Jaffee, I asked for this topic today because I'm a little. Well, what's the word you like? Umbrage. I have umbrage. About.
You take umbrage.
You take it. Where do you take it?
Wait, you take umbrage with something. You don't have umbrage.
But when you
you're
take
trying
it,
to you have your cake and eat it too. You take umbrage, but you don't have umbrage.
But what happens when you take it? Do you then have it?
No, that's not how it works.
So you're attempting to take it and you don't get it.
No, you take it. But it's kind of like, it's like dry ice, right? You take it, but then it just kind of like sublimates into a mist.
Sublimates? Look, you don't have to make up words to try to look smart. Okay.
We're just doing a little basic chemistry here, Jason. No big deal.
Look, you and I, let me tell you what, we have zero chemistry. All right. Let's just get that out there. There is nothing you bring to the table that I'm picking up. All right. Look, this really should be a one-person show. Maybe me and Teddy.
It sounds like you're taking umbrage.
Okay, umbrage taking is over. I don't have the umbrage even though I took it. So what I want to talk about today is my frustration in our culture of software in the word Agile, Agile. I see it on every resume. Everyone thinks they understand it. Everyone thinks they know it, and they really don't. So I'm here today to really take out some frustration on you and help show the world in example A, which is what you will be, that people who think they know Agile and really don't. So let me open up with...
This is great because I'm also frustrated with Agile. So we can be frustrated together. This will be fun.
Okay. So before we get started, let me just ask on a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being a beginner, 10 being an expert, how would you categorize your Agile experience?
Here's what I would say. I would say if you're at a 5, you know everything you need to know. I'm probably at a 7 and I regret it.
All right. So you are a 7 out of 10 on Agile. I'd borderline expert in that. Maybe not the inventor, unless you did invent it. So tell me, Mr. Matt Jaffee, you are a 7 out of 10 in Agile. What is it? How does it work? Tell me about why people should use it.
Whoa. Being a 7 out of 10 does not mean I can tell you why people should use it. No, so I'm getting an echo. Are you jacking up your audio right now?
No, I got my Jaffee phone, my Yeti over here. Is it too much? I mean, you made me go buy this. I don't know if everyone listening remembers, but my microphone wasn't good enough. Is it still no good?
What it sounds quite a bit better when you place it properly and don't have it on a shelf in the other room
It's right next to my Jaffee doll up there.
with all the pins in it.
Jaffee on a shelf. Everyone should get
Yeah,
one.
it's true. So Agile. Are you sure the sound's coming through your headphones? Because I'm getting an echo.
I can hear it right here.
Yeah. But I mean, like if it was coming from outside your headphones, you would still hear it there because that's where your ears are.
Go ahead and talk now.
Talk now. Yes, please. Blah, blah, blah.
No, it's coming just through the headphones.
All right. Super weird. Um, but Agile, it's a software development methodology, right? So it's a set of processes and ceremonies and um, artifacts that you generate to try to build software in a way that doesn't suck. And what that comes down to is you break your software development into short sprints, which involve planning, executing, um, demonstrating what you did, and then reflecting and reiterating on that process. And the whole idea is to continuously improve and be able to react quickly to changes in external events, such that you don't have to make like months or years of plans up front that you stick to, um, you know, to the letter. You're sort of replanning on a regular basis. How'd I do?
Completely wrong. Do you have any
But
idea
why?
where you went wrong?
I didn't go wrong, but tell me.
So first of all, I guess I'll cut to the chase. You did a classic example of mistakenly combining Scrum with Agile. So let me just start there. Does that make any sense?
Oh, sure. Okay, whatever.
Oh, sure,
Fine.
sure, sure. Okay, right. Okay. Yeah, you just basically brought together chemistry and science and claimed that chemistry is every science, right? No, that's not the case. Chemistry is a type of science.
Yeah, I mean, chemistry, you can extend it to most sciences, just like physics.
Before you start, have you ever read the Agile Manifesto?
I have, yes.
You have. What is the Agile Manifesto? I'm not asking you to recite it, but can you give me the thematic value of it?
Yeah, it's got a bunch of like pithy sayings,
Pithy sayings. Right on. Okay.
Yes.
Like, is that something like the Ten Commandments or just a 10 pithy sayings? Is that really where this is going?
Uh, yeah, I mean, the Ten Commandments, how useful are they really? Like, it's just a bunch of obvious
Thou
stuff.
shall not kill. Pretty pithy. Okay. All right. So you literally you didn't even get up the hill before falling off the cliff. Like you just broke your ankle on the first step. Okay. So let's pretend. Let's rewind. Okay. So what is the difference between Agile and Scrum?
Right. So, Agile's the more general philosophy with the pithy sayings, and then Scrum is sort of the application of that, an application of that defines particular sets of meetings and stuff that you actually do.
Those rituals,
Right.
are they
Well, they call
pithy?
them ceremonies in Scrum.
I like rituals. Okay. So if you get rid of Scrum, what is the purpose of Agile? Why even have it? To deliver software? There you don't need pithy sayings and a manifesto to deliver software. What is a thematic value of Agile?
The thematic value. I
Its
mean, I think
value
the
proposition.
idea is around you want a methodology and a philosophy that allows you to deliver valuable software to people, right? You want a set of guidelines and rules to follow that let you do the thing you actually want to do, which is deliver valuable software to customers. And that turns out to be a pretty tricky thing to get right. There's a lot of false paths you can go down.
So close. So close. You got halfway there. Let me just boil it up for you. If you ever want to look good in front of your software friends, just say the purpose of Agile is to deliver the most amount of value in the least amount of time. That's it. And that you're not going to find that in the manifesto, but that is the thematic value of Agile. Most amount of value, least amount of time. So you are halfway there. It is for delivering software, but there is a time component. Okay, so what is Agile based on? Where did it come from? Why have Agile?
Well, it came from some people who were very frustrated with the status quo. And they got together and they spent a bunch of time, coming up with pithy sayings for other people to look at.
Where did they meet?
I don't remember.
I'm telling you right now, the answer is right in front of you.
Snowbird?
Snowbird.
Are you serious?
Hey Siri, where was Agile invented?
I love Snowbird, man.
At the Bird, it was done. And actually, you know what? I sure hope to goodness I've remembered that right, because I even got that shirt out for it.
Yeah, that's great. No, actually, that's awesome. For our audio only listeners, Jason is wearing a Snowbird t-shirt. Snowbird is a ski resort in Utah. Lovely place. Cottonwood Canyons. Highly recommended if you like skiing.
Thank you. Okay, so you missed a really important part of all of Agile, which is iterative development philosophy. Familiar with iterative software?
Well, yeah. I mean, that's kind of the underlying structure that gets you to the end goal, which is delivering valuable software to your customers. You usually can't do that without iterating, right? Because you learn something every time you deliver something to your customer.
Okay, so it is all about, and Lean draws from this. Actually, I'm getting way ahead of myself. So yes, most amount of value, least amount of time. So once time becomes a component, you have to go quickly. You have to be able to pivot in the volatility of all of our customer environments, all the things that you know. That's why Agile exists. So what are the types?
Whoa. I thought you didn't like to move fast. Like everything's about speed. Now he's saying we have to go quickly. I don't know, folks.
Quickly. So what are the types of iterative software development using the Agile methodology?
What do you mean? Like, are you saying like there's Scrum and there's Kanban and there's a bunch of other things?
Yeah. Any others?
I'm sure there are.
Oh. Maybe if you were 8 out of 10, maybe you'd know those.
Well, probably not, because you're making the distinction that Agile is something totally different from the manifestations of it, right?
Okay, so we have iterative software development lifecycle, Agile, most amount of value, least amount of time. Now we need some guardrails. We need some guardrails to help us accomplish all of that. Scrum, Kanban. Break those down for me. Why Scrum? Why not Scrum? Where is it valuable? Where it's not? What's Kanban? Why does it exist? And how is it valuable?
See, this is the whole problem I have with the Agile thing, because people spend so much time debating the like pros and cons of these different methodologies and arguing about the minutia of how to implement them, and none of it matters at all. Like,
wow, umbrage. Let me take some of that. Let me grab some umbrage. It does. Did you literally just say it doesn't matter?
It doesn't. No, you should be focusing on what you're going to build and how you're going to do it, not like I want to switch to Kanban. Like that'll make everything better. Like
So you're saying
I
the process doesn't matter. See now you're sounding like a myopic middle software developer because all you can see is you. Because software development is not just about the software developer; it's also about all of your other stakeholders. Are you familiar with the chicken and the pig?
so I'm not saying process doesn't matter. You absolutely need to have a process because you have to track the work, you have to communicate with the business. Like all these things are very important. Where I get frustrated is when we spend when you just asked me to like break down Scrum versus Kanban, like I had like a triggered reaction, like PTSD,
Triggered react. Oh, wow.
because I can't stand talking about that stuff. Like just pick something and stick with it. And if it's not working, change it slightly. I can't it's everything's going to work a little bit differently for everybody. It's fine. You know, you make changes, you make adjustments, but I just can't stand discussing the minutia of different
All right,
development
I won't get down.
methodologies.
We'll get there. I will convert you because there are fundamental differences in why you would choose the under. I'll make it as simple as possible. Scrum is about commitment of time, and you said the word earlier, sprint. Right? It is a commitment of time. Kanban is the opposite. It is a commitment of prioritization. Two totally different things. In Scrum, the sprint is the smallest unit of time. You don't commit to a sprint and then go back to the team and go, well, I need this story now and that story later. No. Kanban, opposite. Opposite, I want story A today. And then tomorrow comes, no, I want story B today. Now, why in the world would you need those two clearly different processes? What areas of software development or product development would those two environments manifest?
Well, let me ask you this. What do we do at FeatureBase?
What do we do at FeatureBase? At FeatureBase, we have both. We have both Scrum and Kanban.
Or where do we use Scrum and where do we use Kanban?
We use, oh, see, now that's the answer. All right. So, to answer your question, Scrum is excellent for software development teams when there are limited resources and the efforts take a little bit longer and there's a lot more collaboration across them. Kanban is critical for operational environments. So think SRE, DevOps, support, because in those environments, you have high volatility. Whenever you have high volatility and there's a lot of change, you can't use Scrum. You can't because you have to recommit your sprint every other day because people want to bring in stories and bring out stories. So the answer to your question is fundamentally in an typical operational support concepts, all should use Kanban, right? Because you may have the next important customer coming in the next day. The value of Scrum is you need to define your commit and let the team work. Get out of their hair and don't come back for however long your sprint to, technically 1 to 4 weeks, anywhere between 1 to 4 weeks. So have I made a distinction there?
Yes. However, while I'm working on a team that would look to be doing Scrum, I would argue that my day to day is often very Kanban-y. And honestly, I think that's closer to the right way to do it in that the situation dictates like what you need to do. As long as you have some framework for like tracking the work that's going on and making decisions about what's coming in and going out, like I think trying to stick rigidly to one or the other is a pitfall because that's when you get into the stupid arguments and the like, no, like you can't work on that. We don't have a ticket for it. No, you can't switch to that. We're committed to the sprint. You can't do that until 2 weeks from now. And that's what I always have beef with.
Yeah, so you've just missed a stakeholder. So your question really should be framed as why doesn't everyone just use Kanban? Isn't that simpler? You can just change whenever you want. So the issue with Kanban is you can't plan at all. So when it comes to sales and it comes to product owners or product managers, You want to have an semblance of a time frame of when something will be done. That's what makes commitment so important. So it's as simple as, let's say I have 3 user stories I want, and I want them done within 2 weeks. I put them in the sprint. The team has, quote, committed to it. We can get to the committed word later if we have time. But within 2 weeks when those stories will be delivered. Now we ratchet it up a level with a higher performing team that's done capacity planning and understands how to estimate work. Clearly, you're not on this team. And you can actually map out understanding capacity when a much larger effort, let's say you've decomposed it into a dozen stories totaling 65 points, the reasonable velocity of your team over time, and it can be delivered in 2 to 3 sprints. And now you can tell your salesperson, okay, in 4 to 6 weeks, you're going to have your feature within a reasonable set of confidence. Now, if you use Kanban, there's zero commitment, zero planning, and anybody can virtually change the priority of your work anytime.
Okay, so first of all, when you reframed my question, which I didn't ask a question, at two, why can't we just use Kanban? That's not what I asked or stated. However, I don't understand why you can't do predictions and capacity planning with Kanban just as well as you could with Scrum. Like, assuming that you have a backlog of issues or tickets and you're putting estimates on them and you're tracking the work. So, like, when tickets get started, when they get done, your average number of points you get through per week, and you can look at the backlog and see how many points it adds up to. I don't see why you can't simply predict, as long as we don't change the backlog, this is what we'll get through in the next 3 weeks, or whatever.
Yeah. I mean, look, I'm really trying not to make you look silly, but I got to be honest, you're making it hard. So you just explained why it's not possible. So Scrum has a commitment of work, while Kanban is the opposite. So Kanban is based off of the lean, even before the lean framework, which is really JIT. Have you ever heard of JIT before?
Just in time?
Who invented it?
I don't know.
Toyota, right? And it's all about a manufacturing
okay.
process. And the purpose of JIT is when you need something, it's there, right? So it is not about planning and future commitment of work and getting things. It is when I'm on the assembly line and I have found a problem with my manufacturing process, I fix it right now. And Toyota transformed the industry by being able to fix manufacturing process as they occurred and not have to, make a whole bunch of cars and then have to fix them all. So the purpose of Kanban is to be able to change priorities whenever you want. That's its goal. So if you try to go into a Kanban process and say, well, I'm looking for a commitment, based on, we've estimated these stories and, it looks like we can get it done. No, that's the whole point, is that there is zero guarantee. And that is what makes Scrum valuable, is the commitment, is the purpose of, okay, we're going to commit to work. That's, this whole commit. I always like to say I've got commitment issues, right? Because commitment means you're going to do it. So that's why Kanban isn't used, because its goal is to allow people to change actually whenever they want, churn by design.
Yeah, I just don't see why. That's my whole point, is that both of these things can be kind of fluid. Like, you might be doing Kanban, and then the product owner, has a conversation with sales, and it's like, okay, I know sales needs to have X, Y, and Z 3 weeks from now. So they keep things in a priority order such that it looks like X, Y, and Z will get done 3 weeks from now.
That's Scrum. You just explained Scrum. I mean, pretty, immaturely, but you did.
But no, I didn't, because there's not like a 2 week sprint and a planning
Oh,
and
so there's
like.
no commitment of work. So you're going to go to your sales engineer and you're going to say, okay, how can you tell them with any reasonable certainty that something is going to get done without a commitment?
You have the exact same amount of certainty. You know why? Because a commitment is vapor. Like, it
Oh,
doesn't mean anything.
now you're talking about business problems. Yes. So if the business, and I say the business has the company, if the company can't respect the boundaries of a sprint commitment and it's constantly changing, then yes, you're absolutely not doing Scrum. And
That's not what I'm saying though. I'm saying if the product owner owns the backlog and they don't change anything in it, they know about how many points their team gets through every 2 weeks. They know how many points are in the backlog down to the point they need to get to. They can make a prediction about when the work they need is going to be done. And they can say, I'm not changing the order of this backlog. We're going to get this, we're going to do this stuff as quickly as we can. That is just as good as and do that in a Kanban framework. That is just as good as getting the team to commit to that work, because commitment, it doesn't add anything, right? Like there are still surprises. There are still like things that can happen that you didn't expect. Maybe because the team like committed to the sprint, maybe they'll work a little bit harder to really try and get it there. But there still can be things that come up that unplanned surprises, unknown unknowns.
so what I just heard you say is there can be some unknown unknowns and unplanned surprises, right? So in your scenario, how does the product owner keep your serialized backlog for your Kanban in order with all these unknown surprises?
Well, surprises can happen inside of a task, right? Like you plan out a task, you thought it was going to be pretty straightforward, and you get in there and you run a build script and it fails with some strange error message. And you're like, okay, now I have to debug this and I can't move forward if I don't debug it. So this thing that I thought was going to take a day, I now have this debugging task in front of me that might take a day on its own.
So since something unknown comes up, we have to throw out all of our process.
I didn't say that.
So the value of Scrum in that scenario is you can decommit from that work and still deliver all the other value. It's interesting that you're
so you can decommit.
You're upset. You're upset with the commitment concept. It seems like you're not putting value in the commitment.
I don't put much value in the commitment,
so
because
maybe
you can do the same thing in Kanban.
I've worked at high performing companies with high performing teams where the sprint boundaries, the commitments are respected. And that doesn't mean that strange things don't happen. But when those guardrails are put in place and the team is, and I'll use a provocative word, right? When the team is protected to be able to execute at a high level, then you can predict, right, within a reasonable time frame when things will get done. And sure, could you do that with Kanban? Maybe, but the purpose of Scrum is to do it. That's its purpose. And another aspect of the value of a commit is it's a two-way swinging pendulum there, where conceptually, if something comes up, the team needs to overcome it and work more, which we won't have time to talk about why demos are always on Tuesday. But it swings the other way, that if the team undercommitted, it's not required to pull in new work. All that's required is the predictability of getting the work done in the 2-week time frame. So I get what you're saying, that Kanban is more natural for you because you're always going to overachieve and pull in more work, and everything's going to be simple and serialized and get it all done. But Scrum, with the commitment that you're not placing value on, we'll put a team in a position to be successful, to execute over the long run.
So what you're saying is you've observed a psychological benefit to the sort of extra frou-frou that the Scrum framework puts around the Kanban stuff.
I can't keep up with your superlatives. Pithy, and what did you say? What was the word?
I said frou-frou.
Frou-frou.
Yes.
Frou-frou. Yes. Frou-frou process. I find that many software engineers like the idea of using 20% of your time to plan for 80% of your time, and then don't have to deal with management, and then they just execute, and they work with their stakeholders, they get work done, they collaborate within their teammates, collaborate with the product owners and the story owners, and execute, and then come back to the well after 2 weeks. That will be very evident when you have multiple Scrum teams executing at the same time on the same product. That's where things really get exciting, is because every team knows, when you talk about these rituals, you can have something called the Scrum of Scrums, where teams will meet on a semi-regular basis to talk about what it is that they're trying to achieve and the synergies. Synergies, you like my word? You don't like the synergies word?
I mean, it's all good. It's a word. You can use it.
Scrum, in my opinion, empowers teams to execute at a high level, where Kanban, in which you describe, its value is being able to pivot. And Scrum by design is the opposite of that.
Yeah. Well, anyway, my point was basically that everything we talked about is a waste of time because what the difficult bits of this are like the in the weeds decisions about like what to work on and how to go about it, and what to prioritize. Like the process is not the thing you should focus on. Like that's my takeaway. Like have a process, absolutely. Track the work, you know, try to break things down, put reasonable estimates on them, but don't spin your wheels on it. Like figuring out what to work on and trying to work on the right thing, like is you just get so much more leverage from that.
So what about time though? So in your Jaffee ban, right? We're all doing the Jaffee ban process. How do we? How? And I'm
I'm starting a
a
consultancy for Jaffee Band, by the way. Feel
I
free to
definitely want to
contact me.
ban Jaffee, but so I'm a chicken, in at the company, not a pig, and I would like to know when my feature is going to be done. Jaffee ban, when's my feature going to be done?
Okay, look at the backlog,
Okay,
look at the estimates.
so we have estimates. What? How are the estimates represented?
Points on
Points.
issues.
How do points
Sure.
work?
You know how points work.
I know how points work. I'm asking you how points. What's the purpose of points? I mean, it's not dates and times. So why even have points? What's the value in that process?
See, this is another like stupid argument I don't want to have because it's like, yeah, you don't want to put times on things. You want to measure the effort because times it's another like psychological thing, right? Where like different engineers work at different paces, so we estimate the complexity of a task instead of how long it's going to take, and that divorces the concepts enough that people don't get as wrapped around the axle about the estimates, and the points allow you to sort of have define sort of broader, like more vague buckets for things instead of saying like, oh, it's going to take me 2 hours. You say it's 1 point, it's 3 points, it's 5 points, um, and you're only allowed to use certain numbers. But it
Yep.
it basically works the same way, right? Like you know about how many points your whole team does in aggregate every 2 weeks, let's say, and then you can look at the backlog and start adding up points and say, well, if we don't change anything, we'll get down to here in the next 2 weeks.
So there's a lot that I would like to take into my umbrage sack, but let's you still really haven't answered the question about points. What you've said that they are a level of effort, but that's not really what they are. And
No, I said they're a measure of the complexity of the task, the difficulty
closer,
and complexity of the task.
yeah. I like to. That's probably good. That's probably 7 out of 10. I like to say an articulation of risk, but it is really a relative priority. Why use the Fibonacci series?
Well, otherwise you get too granular. Like, it's the same reason you have significant digits in science, right? Like, you just don't have that much precision, so there's no point in pretending you do.
Right. And then you said, well, you got to figure out what the relative capacity of the team is over time. How does that happen? Is that magic, or you just kind of look and see what the team did over time and figure it out? How does that actually happen? How does capacity planning and velocity management happen?
Well, if you're estimating in a consistent way and you're executing in a consistent way, the math is not hard to look back and see how many points you got through in any given segment of time.
Yeah, it's interesting you would say that. Have you ever actually done capacity planning? Because the math isn't hard. The math is not complicated, I should say. The math is not complicated, but the math is hard. How do you take into account vacations? How do you take into account time off with holidays? How do you take into account whether a member of the team is matrix somewhere else? How does all of that come together?
Well, there's a couple different ways you can do it. You can do the obvious thing and say like, well, we had one less person here and we had one holiday this week, so that, removes this. Or you can just say, yeah, it all evens out and don't worry about it too much.
It all just evens out. Okay. And how many hours a day do software engineers get to actually work on software from a capacity standpoint? And what is their overhead? What's the typical ratio for that?
Doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter.
I mean, it's not relevant to capacity planning, because if you're looking at it from the standpoint of the points we've estimated and what we've achieved in the past, like as long as you're not changing the overhead, it doesn't matter.
What about a brand new member of the team? Somebody brand new comes on, do they have the same capacity as someone who's been on the team for longer? Or does this just all equal out?
Yeah, I mean, that's the idea. Like well, ideally you're not changing teams too much too frequently. Obviously, when someone new joins, that is going to affect the capacity, and it's actually could cause the capacity to dip and then sort of come back up and hopefully level off at a higher amount. But I think, for the purposes of planning, you should just kind of expect a little dip, and then observe what actually happens and expand your capacity as appropriate.
What about principal engineers versus junior engineers? Do they have the same expected velocity?
Well, obviously not.
Okay. Does it all just equal out?
What's the question?
So where I'm going with this is how do you do capacity planning to understand the velocity of a team over time? So let's get into estimation. I think that will help. So we glossed over, how we actually estimate stories, but what is the estimation process within Scrum? Let's talk about Scrum, the estimation process. So you got a fist of five, or you got your poker cards, whatever you want to do, t-shirt sizes. What happens when a junior engineer says, oh, this is gonna be a 13, and a senior engineer says it's going to be a 3? What do you do?
Yeah, see, this is
Just a waste of time, huh?
This is another one of those things. Another discussion I hate to have. You have a consistent way to resolve these things, and you just use it, right? You could say, everyone votes and we average it together. You could say this, we go with the senior person's estimate. We could do what you do, and you just say, I think it's a 3, and nobody bothers arguing because they know it's a waste of time.
Now, you got me there. That's actually a fair argument. In our planning sessions, I will often throw out a value to see what kind of response I get. It's more of a I can't say what the term I want to use, but it's kind of like a test, right? You see what kind of response. Straw man may be the right concept to say. But when you actually are doing real capacity planning, velocity management, Scrum dictates that you always have to take the higher estimate. Do you know why that is?
In my opinion, it's for consistency. Like, just do it for consistency.
That's not a bad answer. It's because there's no guarantee of who's going to work on the story. You can't hand stories to people. There's a saying in Scrum. It's don't bring the people to the work. Don't bring the team to the work. Bring the work to the team. And what that means is you don't assign people to tasks. You come up with the velocity of the team. You have a general understanding of the estimate of the stories. There's no guarantee who's going to work on what. And it's really about guaranteeing to get work done. See, it's one part we're probably fundamentally disagreeing, and I'm going to put words in your mouth, right? This is what I'm hearing you say.
You haven't hesitated to do it before,
so you are astutely, as a high performing engineer, what you're focused on is getting the work done as quickly as possible. What I'm focused on is setting expectations with my stakeholders, right? And those are not necessarily aligned goals, right? You're not seeing, I shouldn't say you're not seeing value, but you're not focused on the benefit of being able to set expectations within other departments to be able to say when something will be ready. I would you would never say it's going to be. You would never say it'll be ready when it's ready, right? You would never say that. But what I'm trying to do, what Scrum enables me to do, what these commitments and capacity and velocity management enable me to do, is say I think the horizon for this roadmap item is 2 to 3 months, but without any of that pithy sayings and kerfuffle or rufus. I don't know whatever else you had there, but without all of that rigmarole, you can't make those predictions without any sense of confidence.
Yeah, I listen. I don't discount the value of sort of the psychological impacts of the structures, of a process that you place on a team. And but my argument would be it doesn't matter so much what they are; it matters that you have them and you're consistent.
Why have them? Why have them at all?
Uh, for all the reasons we just
Why
talked about,
why even have estimates if you're not going to have a commitment? It's going
so
to be
that
done when it's done. Why even estimate stories in Jaffee?
so you can make predictions.
But what does that even matter? Because something might just come up.
Yeah, that's always the case, though. It doesn't matter if you commit to it or not. It's something still might come up.
I got commitment issues. Scrum teams have commitment issues because when you commit to it, that's why demo days are on Tuesdays. Demo days are on Tuesdays because if things come up, you always got Saturday and Sunday to overcome them. Never have demos on Fridays. Never. Always on Tuesdays.
Yeah, I mean that's all fine. I but like it's all psychological, right? Like you're building that sort of psychological framework, and like if that works for the teams you're managing, that's great. Do it. Um, but I don't think it matters that much. Like you could have a team of people doing Kanban, and you could say, hey, like it's really important that we get down here in the backlog by 3 weeks from now, and I'm not going to change this order because I want us to commit to it. And in theory, that should do the same thing, right?
Yeah, I put too much value in predictability. I think that, and I'm trying to figure out how I'm not connecting with you on it, because without these dials and levers, someone in my role, whether it's a scrum master role, product owner role, is not going to have any confidence to put their name next to a prediction. But I've seen, I used to have a spreadsheet in a previous role. I think I was within like 5% of prediction. Like that's a high performing team, right? It's not total velocity output that's important. It's predictability that's important. And that's what the Scrum frame rails do for you.
That's cool.
So, Jaffee, I think what we've learned in this is you really hate process.
Yeah, that's not what I said at all. I hate arguing about the minutia process.
The
That's
minutia, the minutia, estimation, predictions, commitment, delivery.
yes. Do estimates, do them consistently. Don't care how you do them.
Why not in days? Why not in days?
Like, go ahead, do it in days.
So that's why I like to say that estimates should be done in Fibonacci, because that's why I say it's an articulation of risk. Because you said, well, something may come up, the unknown unknowns. I believe that a high performing team can reasonably see those. They don't know exactly what it is, but if it's an area that no one's worked on, or if it's a brand new service, you're going to jack up the points or want to decompose it more into smaller, more actionable stories to reduce the risk, right? That's why you're typically not going to go above a 13 or a 21 in any of those predictions, because it's just too risky to commit to something like that. Do you subscribe to that theory?
Yeah.
Do you think you can predict the unknown unknowns?
Well, not always, But I would agree, if you have a reasonably high performing team and, you do the predictions to know like where those dragons might be, right? And then you can make a reasonable decision about, hey, like should we do some time boxed research on this thing to try and suss that out a little bit more. You're still going to get bit by things every once in a while, but that's your 5% where you miss your predictions.
Well, Jaffee, do you still feel that you're about a 7 out of 10 on Agile?
I'm down to like a 3 at this point.
What have we not covered? I mean, I tried to warn you this was going to be, I was going to weaponize the process, but you've taken a very interesting tact, which is, it's just not important. The process is not important. Come up with something and be consistent. I agree with you that consistency is paramount, but you do have to commit to your process and invest in it, and your teams will pay dividends because those guardrails really help protect the team's day to day, which is, all software teams are a limited resource and they should be protected to ensure that they can get the work done that needs to be done for the company.
Yes, you are the shield that guards the realms of software engineers.
What haven't we covered with Agile? I mean, I didn't get to tell my chicken and pig joke.
You want to tell it?
You've had to have heard it. If you've already heard it, I'm not going to tell it.
I mean, I've heard the chicken and pig stuff before, but I didn't know it was a joke.
That the chicken goes to the pig, hey, you wanna start a restaurant? And the pig goes, I don't know. The chicken goes, yeah, it's going to be called bacon and eggs. That's the joke. That's what commitment is about. The pig is committed.
The pigs are the developers, and the chickens the
pigs are committed.
observer?
Chickens are not. So the chickens are your folks are. I mean, you've got commitment issues. You've clearly got more commitment issues than I do. But a commitment is who is in on the sprint. So typically that's going to be the Scrum team, the developers, maybe a business analysts, maybe QA, depending how you're matrixed out. It should be your Scrum master and your product owner, all committed to the work. And the chickens are going to be sales, customer support, any of the integration teams, maybe your SREs, DevOps, all of that. They need and desire the output, but they're not committed to delivering of that work.
Right. They're just gonna give up their children to it.
I'm not touching that one. What, do you have any questions about Agile? Anything you really wish you would have known? I mean, look, on a scale of 1 to 10, I'm clearly an 11 here, right?
Do you have any questions about getting real work done?
Getting real work done. Jaffee, what would you do without me? I mean, who would put up with these antics? Is there anyone else in the world?
Oh man, it's 48 minutes. I never get back. All right. Listen, if you enjoyed the show or absolutely hated this episode, hit us up at SmartSnarkcast on Twitter, smartandsnark@gmail.com. And with that, Jason, any last words?
Hey man, enjoy breakfast.
Love to see it.